Have you ever felt like you're on a journey, but not one that takes you to a different city or a new country? A journey that happens right where you are. A quiet exploration of the landscape within your own heart. It's a place we all carry, this inner world. Yet how often do we truly stop to look around, to map its terrain? Let's start this journey together. Imagine for a moment that your heart is a vast landscape. What does it look like? Is it a dense, ancient forest with sunlight filtering through the leaves, dappling the ground with light and shadow? Perhaps it's a wide open coastline where waves of feeling crash against the shore, sometimes gentle, sometimes with a thunderous roar. Or maybe it's a quiet, secluded garden, carefully tended with flowers of joy and vines of old memories. Whatever your landscape is, it's uniquely yours. And like any landscape, it changes. Seasons shift within us. There are times of spring, full of new growth, excitement, and budding possibilities. We feel alive, energetic, like anything is possible. The air is fresh, and every sunrise feels like a promise. These are the moments of falling in love, starting a new project, or simply waking up with a sense of pure, unburdened happiness. Then comes the summer of the heart, a time of intensity, passion, and vibrant life. The sun is high, and our emotions can run warm. It's a season of deep connections, bold adventures, and living fully. But summer can also bring storms, sudden downpours of anger or frustration that appear out of nowhere, clearing the air just as quickly as they arrived. It's a powerful season, one that teaches us the strength of our own feelings. After the heat of summer, autumn arribis. This is a season of letting go. The leaves on the trees turn brilliant colors before they fall, reminding us that there is beauty in release. Autumn in the heart is a time for reflection. We might look back on past experiences, gathering the wisdom they've given us. It can be a bittersweet season, a mix of gratitude for what has been and a quiet melancholy for what is ending. It's the season of goodbyes, of turning pages, of preparing for a quieter time. And then there is winter. Winter in the heart can sometimes feel harsh and isolating. It's a time when things can seem barren, cold, and still. We might feel distant from others, or even from ourselves. But winter is not an end. It is a necessary season of rest and deep introspection. Beneath the snow-covered ground, life is not gone. It is dormant, gathering strength. It's in the quiet of winter that we can hear our deepest thoughts. It's a time for solitude, for wrapping ourselves in warmth, and for understanding that stillness is also a form of growth. Without this fallow period, the spring could never feel so new. Navigating this inner landscape isn't always easy. Sometimes we get lost in the forest of our own doubts. We might find ourselves climbing mountains of grief, the summit seeming impossibly far away. Or we get stuck in the muddy flats of regret, unable to move forward. In these moments, it's important to be a gentle explorer. You don't need to conquer your landscape. You only need to understand it. One of the most powerful tools for this journey is stillness. Just finding a few minutes each day to sit quietly, to close your eyes, and to simply be present with whatever is happening inside. Don't judge the weather in your heart. If it's stormy, let it be stormy. If it's sunny, soak in the warmth. By simply observing without judgment, we begin to understand the patterns of our inner world. We see that the storms always pass, the sun always returns, and even in the darkest woods, there are paths waiting to be discovered. Another tool is curiosity. Instead of being afraid of a difficult emotion, what if we approached it with a gentle question? If sadness is a deep, dark lake, what lies at its bottom? If anxiety is a tangled knot of vines, can we trace one vine back to its root? This isn't about analyzing ourselves into oblivion, but about fostering a kind, curious relationship with our own feelings. They are not enemies to be defeated. They are messengers, bringing us information about what we need, what we long for, and where we might be wounded. Think about the landmarks in your personal landscape. There are probably towering peaks of achievement and joy, moments you can look back on with pride and warmth. These are your mountains. They remind you of your strength and resilience. There are also likely valleys of sorrow or loss. These places, while difficult to visit, hold their own kind of beauty. They teach us empathy, compassion, and the true depth of our capacity to feel. Every part of your landscape, the bright and the dark, has shaped you. This inner journey is also about creating new features in your landscape. You can plant a garden of gratitude. Each day, find a few things, no matter how small, to be thankful for. Water them with your attention and watch how they grow, filling your inner world with color and fragrance. You can build a sanctuary, a safe, peaceful place in your mind that you can retreat to whenever you feel overwhelmed. It could be a cozy cabin by a lake, a sunlit library, or any place that feels like home to your soul. This quiet journey through the landscape of the heart is not a one-time trip. It's a lifelong pilgrimage. It's the gentle, continuous work of getting to know ourselves, of tending to our inner world, and of learning to navigate its ever-changing seasons with grace and compassion. It's about realizing that the most profound discoveries aren't always in the world outside, but in the quiet, sacred space within. So take a moment today, take a deep breath, and begin your own quiet journey. You might be surprised by the beauty you find there. Thank you for walking with me for a little while. If this resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe and continue exploring with us. See you next time. Leaving the warmth of France behind felt like a turning point. We were in the groove now. That strange state of mind where the car feels more like home than any building ever could. As we pulled out of Fontainebleau, the sky was a heavy, bruised purple, promising more of that relentless December rain. But inside our little metal sanctuary, we were tucked away. The dogs were curled up, the heater was humming, and the road ahead felt like an open invitation. Driving through France toward the coast is a meditative experience. The motorways that are long, sweeping ribbons of gray that cut through some of the most historic landscapes in the world. As the wipers swished back and forth, left, right, left. Rita, I found myself thinking about the sheer scale of what we were doing. We were moving an entire life to humans and to hounds across a continent. There is a specific kind of freedom you only find on a French autoroute. At 4 in the morning, the world feels like it belongs to you. No one is calling. No one is asking for anything. It's just you, the glowing dashboard, and the infinite road. We stopped at one of those classic French service stations, Tiones, that, funnily enough, always seemed to have better coffee than a five-star hotel back home. Standing there in the damp air, watching Frankie sniff at a patch of frost, while Timmy looked on with the weary patience of an old soul, I felt a profound sense of peace. We were between worlds. We weren't in Romania anymore, and we weren't in Ireland yet. We were just here. As we neared the coast, the air began to change. You can smell the sea long before you see it. It's a sharp, salty tang that cuts through the scent of wet tarmac and diesel. We were headed for the ferry, a massive, hulking beast of a ship waiting to carry us across the English Channel. Now, if you've never taken dogs on a ferry, let me tell you, it's a bit of a military operation. You have to check the chips, check the passports, and make sure their cozy world in the back is settled before the car deck is locked. The crossing was a bit of a trek. The channel can be a temperamental thing in December, and the boat was leaning into the swell, groaning like a giant waking from a nap. I stood on the deck for a moment, the wind whipping my hair, looking out at the dark, churning water. It's humbling, isn't it, to realize how small we are compared to the vastness of the sea. But then I'd go back down to the car, see those two wagging tails, and remember that my whole world was right there in that SUV. Landing in the UK felt like the beginning of the final act. Everything changed: the side of the road we drive on, the speed signs, even the rhythm of the traffic. There's a certain politeness to British driving, a sort of silent agreement between commuters. We began the long haul up from the south coast, aiming for the top of Wales, where the second boat was waiting. The UK leg of a road trip is always a bit more intense. The roads are narrower, the traffic is denser, and the weather, well, let's just say the rain followed us like a loyal friend. We drove through the night, past the glowing lights of London, up through the Midlands, and toward the rugged hills of Wales. I put on another audiobook to keep the shadows at bay this time, a collection of old Irish folklore. It felt right. As we got closer to the Irish Sea, the stories of giants, fairies, and ancient kings seemed to vibrate in the air. By the time we reached the port in Holyhead, we were all exhausted but buzzing with anticipation. We were just one more boat ride away from home. The Welsh coasts in the early hours of the morning is hauntingly beautiful. The cliffs are jagged and black against the spray of the sea, and the lighthouse beams sweep across the dark like giant searching fingers. We boarded the final ferry. This was the one that would take us across the Irish Sea to Dublin. As the ramp lifted and the engines began to thrum beneath our feet, I looked at Rebecca. She was tired, her hair a bit messy from days on the road, but she had that spark in her eyes. We were almost there. I settled back into the seat, the gentle vibration of the ship acting like a lullaby. Think about your own life for a moment. Think about the long hauls you've endured, the times when you were unsure how much further you could go, but you kept moving anyway. There is a strength in you, a persistence that has carried you through every storm and every long night. You are the driver of your own journey, and even when the road is dark and the rain is heavy, you are moving toward your own green hills. The ship began to roll softly on the waves, up and down, up and down. It's the same rhythm as your breath. Feel your body sinking deeper into the stillness. The car, the boat, the road, it's all part of the same dream now. We are crossing the final stretch of water, The lights of the Welsh coast are fading, and somewhere out there in the darkness, the first lights of Ireland are waiting to welcome us home. Everything is quiet now. The dogs are fast asleep, their paws twitching as they dream of running through the Irish heather. Rebecca is resting her head against the window, her breath fogging the glass in a rhythmic pattern. And you are drifting with us. Have you ever felt a pull towards a place you've never been? A strange, magnetic tug on your soul that feels less like a destination and more like a homecoming. For me, that place was a tiny stone cottage nestled somewhere in the green heart of Ireland. I'd seen pictures, of course, postcards and dreamy travel blogs showing a whitewashed cottage with a bright red door, smoke curling lazily from its chimney, and a riot of wildflowers guarding the path. But a picture can't capture the scent of peat smoke on the breeze or the deep, vibrating silence of the countryside. My journey began not at the airport, but months earlier, scrolling endlessly through rental sites. I wasn't looking for luxury or modern amenities. I was looking for a feeling, and then I found it. The listing was simple, almost dark, and Taigin Darag. It read, "The Little Red House." The photos were modest, showing worn wooden floors, a deep fireplace, and windows that looked out onto nothing but rolling hills and an endless sky. It was perfect. The flight to Shannon felt like a time machine, carrying me away from the constant noise and rush of my life. Landing on Irish soil, the air itself felt different, softer, wetter, alive. Picking up the rental car, a tiny thing that felt more like a toy, I set off. My GPS was a woman with a gentle Irish accent, but even she seemed to get confused by the winding, narrow roads that seemed to have been drawn by a wandering sheep rather than a surveyor. I got lost, of course. Gloriously, wonderfully lost. I drove down lanes so narrow that ferns and foxgloves brushed against both sides of the car. I stopped for herds of unconcerned sheep who regarded my vehicle with mild curiosity before ambling on. Each wrong turn felt like a secret detour, revealing another breathtaking view of misty valleys and patchworks of green fields separated by ancient stone walls. This wasn't a delay. It was part of the pilgrimage. Finally, after asking for directions from a friendly farmer who leaned on his gate and pointed with a weathered hand, I saw it, tucked down a lane that was more grass than gravel. There it was, Antaigin Darag, the little red house. It was even more charming and impossibly real than the pictures. The red door was a cheerful welcome against the grey stone, and the promised wildflowers were a beautiful, untamed explosion of color. Turning the old iron key in the lock, the door swung open with a soft groan. In Bitin Main. The air inside was cool and smelled of wood smoke, old books, and something else, something like peace. It wasn't the empty silence of an unused house. It was a quiet filled with the echoes of history, of laughter and stories told around the fire. The first thing I did was light the fire. The owner had left a basket full of peat bricks. As they caught light, they released that iconic, earthy aroma that is the very soul of rural Ireland. The flames danced and flickered, casting a warm, golden glow across the cozy room. I explored my home for the next 2 weeks. The kitchen was small, but had everything I needed, including a chipped porcelain sink and a window that framed a view of a single windswept hawthorn tree. The bedroom upstairs was tucked under the eaves, with a thick duvet on the bed and a small window that was like a living painting of the changing sky. That first evening, I didn't check my phone or turn on a screen. I sat in a comfortable armchair by the fire, a cup of tea warming my hands, and I just listened. I listened to the crackle of the peat, the gentle sigh of the wind outside, and the distant, mournful call of a bird I couldn't name. The relentless chatter in my own head, the one that ran a constant to-do list and worried about deadlines, began to quiet down. It was like a clenched muscle slowly, finally releasing its tension. My days fell into a simple, beautiful rhythm dictated by the sun and the weather. I woke early, when the morning mist was still clinging to the valleys, making the world look soft and dreamlike. I'd make coffee and take it outside, my bare feet cold on the dookiest stone step, and watch the world wake up. The silence was so profound you could hear the flutter of a bird's wings as it flew past. Most days, I walked. I had no destination in mind. I'd just pick a direction and follow the old lanes, or borines, as they're called. I discovered hidden streams, crumbling stone ruins that whispered of forgotten times, and fields where ancient stand-in stones pointed to the sky, their purpose lost to time, but their presence still powerful. I'd pack a simple lunch of bread, cheese, and an apple, and find a spot on a hillside to eat, with only the sheep for company. The weather was a character in itself, fickle and dramatic. One moment, brilliant sunshine would make the greens so vibrant they almost hurt your eyes. The next, dark clouds would roll in from the Atlantic, and a soft rain, a drizzle, would begin to fall, polishing the leaves and stones until they gleamed. I learned not to fight the rain, but to embrace it. I had a good waterproof coat and boots, and walking in the gentle Irish rain felt cleansing, washing away the dust, not just from the landscape, but from my spirit. Evenings were for the fire. I'd returned from my walks. Cheeks flushed from the wind and rekindled the flames. I read books I'd meant to read for years. I wrote in a journal, not about anything profound, just simple observations, the color of the sunset, the taste of the local brown bread, the kindness of the woman in the village shop who called everyone love. One of the most magical things was the sky at night. Away from the light pollution of the city, the cosmos revealed itself in all its glory. On clear nights, I'd wrap myself in a blanket and stand outside, staring up at a canopy of stars so thick and bright it felt like you could reach out and scoop them up with your hands. The Milky Way was a luminous river flowing across the darkness, and I felt both incredibly small and deeply connected to everything. I wasn't completely isolated. The nearby village was a short drive away. A classic Irish village with a pub, a church, and a single shop that sold everything from milk to fishing tackle. Going to the pub, the Hairy Lemon, became a weekly ritual. The first time I walked in, the music and conversation stopped for a second as all eyes turned to the stranger. But a smile and a hello was all it took. Soon I was sharing a pint with locals who had stories to tell that were far more entertaining than anything on Netflix. They told me about the local history, the legend of the puka that lived in the nearby hills, and who was related to whom for 3 generations back. It was a community woven together by shared lives and a deep connection to the land. Leaving was the hardest part. On my last morning, I stood on the stone step one final time, drinking my coffee and trying to memorize it, all the smell of the air, the feel of the cool breeze, the sound of the silence. I tidied the cottage, leaving it as I'd found it, and swept the ashes from the hearth. Locking that red door behind me felt like closing a chapter of a beloved book. As I drove away, I kept looking in the rearview mirror until the little stone cottage, with its cheerful red door, disappeared from view. There were tears in my eyes, but they weren't entirely sad. You see, I hadn't just visited a place. I had found a part of myself I didn't know was missing. That cottage, Antichindarag, taught me the beauty of slowing down, the joy of simplicity, and the profound peace that comes from connecting with nature and with people. It was more than a vacation. It was a homecoming. And I know, with a certainty that settles deep in my bones, that someday I'll be back. Thanks for sharing this journey with me. If you've ever had a trip that felt like a homecoming, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing for more adventures. See you next time. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're retackling something that I think almost everyone struggles with at some point. The messy desk. You know what I'm talking about? The piles of paper, the tangled cables, the mystery sticky notes. It's not just about looks. A cluttered space can actually lead to a cluttered mind, making it harder to focus and get things done. But don't worry, because today we're going to completely transform this chaos into a clean, organized, and super productive workspace in just a few simple steps. So, if you're ready to say goodbye to the mess and hello to a more focused you, stick around. Let's get started. Alright? Step 1 is the most dramatic, but also the most important. Clear everything off. And I mean everything. Drawer, monitor, drawer, keyboard, your sad-looking plant. All of it. Take everything off your desk and put it on the floor or your bed. This gives you a blank slate to work with. Now, grab a cloth and some all-purpose cleaner and give that desk a really good wipe down. Get into all the corners, wipe down the legs. You'd be surprised how much dust and grime accumulates. A clean surface is the foundation of an organized space, and it instantly makes you feel better. It's like hitting a reset button for your entire work area. Now for the fun part, or maybe the hard part, depending on how you look at it, sorting. Look at that pile of stuff you just took off your desk. We're going to sort it into 3 categories. First, keep on desk. These are your absolute essentials, the things you use every single day. Think your laptop, monitor, keyboard, mouse, and maybe a single pen and a notebook. Be ruthless here. The goal is to keep your desk surface as clear as possible. Second, keep nearby. This category is for items you use regularly but not constantly. Things like your stapler, extra pens, your planner, headphones, maybe some specific files. These don't need to live on your desk, but they should be easily accessible, like in a desk drawer or a nearby shelf. We'll figure out exactly where to put them in the next step. And third, the most satisfying category, trash or relocate. This is for old receipts, dried up pens, wrappers, cables, for devices you don't even own anymore. Get rid of it. If it's something important but doesn't belong in your office, like a coffee mug from 3 days ago or your kid's toy, relocate it to its proper home. Don't be afraid to let go. The more you can get rid of, the easier it will be to stay organized long term. Okay, with our items sorted, it's time for step 3. Create zones. This is a game. Think about how you work. You probably have a primary work zone, a secondary zone, and an outer zone. Your primary zone is the area directly in front of you. This is prime real estate. It should only hold your keep-on-desk items, your monitor, keyboard, and mouse. This ensures you have a clear, focused area for your main tasks. No distractions, just the tools you need to get work done. Your secondary zone is the area within arm's reach. This is where your keep nearby items can go. I like to use desk organizers, small drawer units, or vertical file holders here. For example, you can have a small tray for your notebook and pen, or a vertical stand for your laptop if you use an external monitor. The key is to use vertical space to keep your desk surface clear. Think up, not out. Your planner, your phone stand, your water bottle. They can all live happily in this secondary zone. And finally, the outer zone. This includes your drawers, shelves next to your desk, or any storage cabinets. This is for things you need, but not every day. Extra office supplies, old files you need to keep, reference books. By assigning everything a home in one of these zones, you'll always know where to find things and, more importantly, where to put them back. Step 4 is all about conquering the cable monster. Tangled wires are the #1 enemy of a clean desk. They look messy and attract dust, but fixing this is easier than you think. First, unplug everything so you can start fresh. Group cables together based on what they connect to. Then, use cable ties, Velcro straps, or even simple binder clips to bundle them neatly. You can run these bundles along the back edge of your desk or down a desk leg. A great pro tip is to use adhesive cable clips. You can stick these to the underside or the back of your desk to guide your cables exactly where you want them to go. This keeps them completely out of sight. For charging cables that you frequently plug and unplug, a magnetic cable holder on the edge of your desk is amazing. It keeps the end of the cable right where you need it, so you're not fumbling around on the floor. Trust me, spending 10 minutes on cable management will make your desk look 100 times better. And now for step 5, the final touch. Personalize and maintain. Your workspace should be functional, but it should also be a place that inspires you. Now that it's clean and organized, add 1 or 2 personal items back. Maybe a small plant, a framed photo, or a piece of art you love. Something that makes you smile. But remember the rule: less is more. Don't reclutter what you just cleaned. The most crucial part of this whole process is maintenance. Make it a habit to spend just 2 minutes at the end of each day putting things back in their designated zones. Wipe down your desk, put your pens back, and toss any trash. This tiny habit prevents the mess from ever building up again. It is so much easier to spend 2 minutes a day tidying up than to spend an hour every weekend on a massive cleanup. So, there you have it. A complete desk transformation in 5 simple steps. Clear everything off. Sort your items into categories. Create your work zones. Manage those messy cables. And finally, personalize and maintain, your desk is now a calm, organized, and productive command center. I promise you, working in a space like this feels so much better, and you will find it easier to focus and be creative. Thank you so much for watching and for organizing with me today. If you found these tips helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content on productivity and living a more organized life. Let me know in the comments which tip you're most excited to try, or if you have any amazing desk organization hacks of your own. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video. Have you ever felt like you've been running your whole life, chasing something you can't quite name? That was me. For years, my life was a blur of city lights, deadlines, and the constant hum of a world that never sleeps. I was always moving, always driving, convinced that the next big thing, the next promotion, the next destination would finally bring me what I was looking for. But it never did. Each achievement felt hollow. Each new city just another backdrop for the same old restlessness. I was a traveler with 1,000 stamps in my passport, but no real sense of home. It was exhaustion that finally stopped me in my tracks. Not just a physical tiredness, but a deep, soul-level weariness. I remember looking out of a high-rise window one rainy Tuesday, watching the relentless traffic below, and a question echoed in my mind. What am I even doing? It was a quiet question, but it was loud enough to shatter the illusion I'd built around myself. I realized I wasn't living. I was just accumulating experiences, like a collector who never actually enjoys their collection. That night, I found myself scrolling through old family photos. There was one of my great-grandmother, a woman I'd never met, standing in front of a small stone cottage. Her eyes held a kind of calm I'd never known. The caption on the back of the photo simply said, "Claire, 1922. That was it. A name and a year, but it was a breadcrumb. A tiny clue in the mystery of my own discontent. On a whim, driven by something I couldn't explain, I booked a one-way ticket to Ireland. Landing at Shannon Airport was like stepping into a different world. The air itself felt different, softer, cleaner, filled with the scent of rain and earth. I rented a small car and started driving, with no real plan other than the name of a county. The further I drove from the city, the more the tension in my shoulders began to ease. The motorways gave way to narrow country lanes, flanked by ancient stone walls and a green so vibrant it almost hurt my eyes. Sheep, with their daubs of colorful paint, seemed to be the primary form of traffic control. And I found myself smiling for the first time in what felt like forever. My search for the cottage was less of a mission and more of a meandering. I stopped in tiny villages where the pub was the heart and soul of the community. I'd sit by a crackling peat fire, nurse in a pint, and just listen. The stories, the laughter, the music, it was all so genuine. People were curious, but in a warm, welcoming way. They'd ask where I was from, and when I'd mention I was looking for my roots in Clare, their eyes would light up. Ah, a Yank with notions. One old fella chuckled, but there was no malice in it, only a friendly curiosity. It was in one of these pubs, in a village called Kilfenora, that I got my first real lead. I showed the old photo to the bartender, a woman named Shauban. She studied it for a long moment, her brow furrowed in concentration. Then she called over an elderly man sitting at the end of the bar. He peered at the photo through thick glasses, his finger tracing the outline of the stone cottage. "I know this place," he said, his voice a low, gravelly rumble. "It's the old O'Malley cottage. Been empty for years, but it's still standing, just past the Palnebron Dulman. Downa Borin. To the left, a Borin. A small, rural lane." The word itself sounded like poetry. The next morning, with a renewed sense of purpose, I followed his directions. The landscape here was otherworldly. Te Beron, a vast, cracked pavement of limestone that stretched to the horizon, yet teeming with life in its crevices. Wildflowers of purple, yellow, and white pushed up through the stone, a testament to resilience. I passed the Insindulman, a portal tomb standing silent against the sky for over 5,000 years. It was humbling. It made my own lifetime, my own worries, feel so incredibly small. And then I saw it, tucked away, almost hidden by overgrown ivy and hawthorn bushes, was the cottage. It was smaller than I imagined, and the roof had partially caved in, but it was unmistakably the same place. My heart pounded in my chest. I pushed open the creaking wooden gate and walked up the overgrown path. The door was gone, leaving a dark, gaping entrance. I stepped inside. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth, decaying wood, and time itself. Sunlight streamed through the holes in the roof, illuminating dust motes, dancing in the air. The main room was bare, save for a massive stone hearth, blackened with the soot of 1,000 fires. I ran my hand over the cold, rough stone. I could almost hear the echoes of the past, the crackle of the fire, the murmur of Gaelic voices, the laughter of children. This was where my great-grandmother had lived. This was a part of me. I spent hours there, just sitting on the stone floor, watching the light change as the sun moved across the sky. For the first time, the restless energy inside me was gone. It was replaced by a profound sense of peace, a feeling of connection that I'd been searching for all over the world. It wasn't in a bustling metropolis or on an exotic beach. It was here, in this crumbling stone ruin, in the heart of the Irish countryside. That day changed everything. I didn't go back to my old life. How could I? I found a small cottage to rent nearby, one with a solid roof and a working fireplace. I started writing again, not for deadlines or clients, but for myself. I spent my days walking the green roads, exploring the ancient ruins, and getting to know the land and its people. I learned the names of the wildflowers and the birds. I learned to read the ever-changing sky and to find comfort in the soft, persistent rain. Life here is simple, but it's full. It's measured not in minutes and hours, but in seasons and tides. The hustle has been replaced by a rhythm. The ambition to climb a corporate ladder has been replaced by the simple joy of watching a sunset paint the sky orange and purple over Galway Bay. I found what I was looking for, but it wasn't a place on a map. It was a feeling, a sense of belonging, a homecoming. People sometimes ask if I miss the city, the excitement, the pace, and the honest answer is no. I traded a life of noise for a life of music, the music of the wind in the reeds, the waves on the shore, the laughter in the local pub. My long journey is over, not because I stopped moving, but because I finally arrived. I found my quiet corner of the world, Or maybe it found me. And here, surrounded by these ancient stones and endless green, I am finally, truly home. Thanks for sharing this journey with me. If my story resonated with you, I'd love it if you'd subscribe and join me for more tales from the Irish countryside. See you in the next one. Have you ever felt like you've been running your whole life? Chasing deadlines, climbing ladders, always moving towards a destination that seems to shift further away the closer you get? I have. For years, my life was a blur of airport terminals, new cities, and the constant, low-humming anxieties of the next big thing. I told myself it was ambition, that I was building something, but deep down, I knew I was searching for a feeling, not a future, a feeling of home. And I had no idea that I would find it at the end of a long, winding road under the vast, dramatic skies of Ireland. This wasn't a planned escape. It was more like a surrender. After a particularly grueling project that left me feeling more hollowed out than accomplished, I booked a one-way ticket. No itinerary, no grand plan, just a vague notion of green hills and quiet. I landed in Dublin, rented a car that felt laughably small on those narrow roads, and just started driving west. I was drawn west, as if by some ancient magnetic pull. The first few days were a strange decompression. My phone would buzz, and my heart would leap with that familiar Pavlovian response, expecting a crisis. But the notifications were just notifications. The world I had left behind was still spinning, but my own had slowed to a crawl. I drove through the Wicklow Mountains, the landscape unfolding like a storybook. I stopped in tiny villages where the pub was the heart, the shop was the soul, and everyone seemed to know everyone else's business. But in the kindest way possible. I was an outsider, a complete stranger, yet I was met with nods, smiles, and the occasional grand day for it, isn't it? My journey eventually led me to County Clare. This is where the story really begins. The Baran, a lunar landscape of cracked limestone and rare wildflowers, felt like another planet. I spent a day walking there, the only sounds being the wind whistling through the crevices and the distant bleating of sheep. It was here, in this stark, beautiful emptiness, that the noise in my head finally began to quiet down. The constant to-do lists, the replayed conversations, the anxieties about the future, they just faded. I found a small cottage to rent near the coast, a stone's throw from the cliffs of Maha. It was simple, with a turf-burning stove and windows that looked out onto a patchwork of green fields, separated by ancient stone walls, all leading to the wild Atlantic. The owner, an old farmer named Seamus, with hands like worn leather and eyes that held a century of stories, just handed me the key and said, "The turf is in the shed. Don't let the fire go out." That was it. No Wi-Fi password, no list of rules, just a simple instruction that felt more like life advice. My days fell into a rhythm dictated by the sun and the tides. I'd wake up early, the air crisp and smelling of salt and damp earth. I'd make coffee and sit by the window, watching the cows in the next field slowly munch their way through the morning. I started walking, not hiking with a purpose, just walking down winding borines, the grassy strip in the middle tickling the undercarriage of my car when I drove. I'd follow paths that seemed to lead nowhere and would suddenly open up to a hidden cove or a crumbling castle ruin. I discovered the joy of small things. The taste of freshly baked soda bread, slathered with creamy Irish butter. The warmth of the turf fire at night, its smoky, sweet scent filling the small cottage. The way the light changed a dozen times a day, from brilliant sunshine that made the green almost glow, to soft, misty rain that blurred the edges of the world, making it feel intimate and secret. One afternoon, I walked to the cliffs. It was a blustery day, and the wind was fierce, whipping my hair and stealing my breath. I stood near the edge, watching the massive waves crash against the rock face hundreds of feet below. The sheer power of it was humbling. All my self-important worries, my career goals, my carefully constructed identity, they felt so insignificant in the face of that raw, elemental force. I wasn't fighting anymore. I wasn't striving. I was just there, a tiny speck of existence, witnessing something immense and eternal. And in that moment, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years, a deep, profound stillness. I started talking to people. Not networking, just talking. I'd spend an hour in the village shop, chatting with the owner about the weather, the price of milk, and her nephew who was playing a hurling match on Sunday. I'd go to the pub in the evening, not to drink myself numb but to listen to the traditional music sessions where fiddles and flutes and bodhrans would weave melodies that were both joyous and melancholic, to the stories traded over pints of Guinness, tales of fishing trips, local legends, and gentle gossip. I learned to listen to the silence, too, the silence of the fields at dusk, broken only by the call of a seabird, the silence of the cottage late at night with only the crackle of the fire for company. It wasn't an empty silence. It was full of peace, full of history, full of a sense of belonging to a place that had existed long before me and would exist long after. I remember one evening, I was sitting outside the cottage as the sun went down. The sky was a riot of orange, pink, and purple, and the air was perfectly still. A local man, Liam, was walking his dog down the lane and stopped to chat. He pointed to the sky and said, "You know, we don't have the best weather in the world, but when we get a good sunset, we get the best sunset in the world." He smiled, nodded, and walked on, and it hit me. That was it. That was the secret. It wasn't about perfection. It was about appreciating the moments of beauty when they came. It wasn't about constantly striving for more, but about finding contentment in what was right in front of you. The warmth of a fire, the beauty of a sunset, a friendly conversation with a neighbor. My journey hadn't been about finding a new place to live. It had been about finding a new way to live. The frantic pace of my old life had been a way of running from myself. Here, in the quiet of the Irish countryside, there was nowhere left to run. I had to face this silence, and in it, I found myself again. Not the person I was supposed to be, but the person I actually was. The Irish have a word. Failed? It means welcome. But it's more than that. It's a feeling. It's the warmth of the pub, the open door of a neighbor, the smile of a stranger. In Ireland, I didn't just feel welcomed. I felt like I had come home, not to a place I was from, but to a place I belonged. It was the end of a long, frantic journey and the beginning of a quiet, beautiful one. It was the discovery that home isn't a place on a map. It's a feeling of peace in your own soul, and sometimes you have to travel to the edge of the world to find your way back to its center. Thank you for joining me on this little trip down memory lane. If you've ever felt that pull to just stop, maybe this is your sign. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about finding beauty in unexpected places. See you next time. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your night. May you find deep peace and restful sleep. Wishing you the sweetest dreams. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.